everyone, and welcome to the Detox Journey Interviews, episode 6. Today I have with me Ashley Cates. And Ashley, I'm very excited to have you on here, and thank you so much for coming on in such short notice. So just a little bit about Ashley. She is a toxicologist, and she has a son that is 6 years old. And after a round of vaccines, or you can get into the details about that, he started experiencing the signs and symptoms of autism, which she is now detoxing with a high fruit diet. We will get into all the details about that. So Ashley, welcome to the interview, and thank you very much for being here.
Hi, Brooke. Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this for sure.
Definitely. It's something, I'm glad I caught you. This is something that's going to help a lot of people, definitely. And maybe even just as an outside view, see what's possible with detoxification, and maybe give some answers to people who need it. So how did you get started on this health journey?
So it kind of started a long time ago when I was young. I went into toxicology, but oddly enough, we didn't really learn about, health in the natural health sense. It was all about, the levels at which this or that could be toxic and how to determine that, right? But we never covered vaccines. We hardly covered any type of pharmaceuticals. It was mostly environmental toxicants and how that affected the body biologically and those things. Anyway, I had some health issues that I had been struggling with and trying to work through for a long time. I've always been kind of like, I don't know why, but I've never even really taken Tylenol for a headache. I've just always been like, better to I'd rather know if my head hurts and try to work through that with like a natural thing, rather than just numb the pain, So I early on was always kind of doing my own reading and research here and there. Yes, through Google, right? And that was when, I was just kind of trying and looking into anything and everything. But then when my son was born, actually when I was pregnant with him, my mom had given me the Dr. Sears, the vaccine book, right? And I had never really looked into vaccines before then. Like I had vaguely remembered this issue with Jenny McCarthy, right? But I was like, I wasn't affected by it either way, right? I didn't really even have an opinion. I was just like, oh, okay. But when I was a kid, I did not receive the pertussis vaccine because my sister had a couple of high fevers after her DTaP vaccines, right? Or it was DPT back then. Mm-hmm. So I never received it because my mom was like, I don't want her getting this because it was too scary with her older sister. So that's why my mom gave me the book and was like, she wasn't against vaccines. She was just like, you should just be aware of what's in them and all of that. So that was when I first started really getting into my journey of just looking into vaccines. And that was definitely, I guess, the jumping in point of really diving into natural health and how to achieve health without, obviously you can't even achieve health with pharmaceuticals or any medical intervention as it is. You just take away the symptoms sometimes, yeah. Right?
Suppress it, but yeah.
So yeah, that was, and then when my son started to be developmentally delayed, when we did give him some vaccines, we tried to delay and selectively vaccinate, but there was a nurse that gave him a vaccine I didn't ask for, and that was scary, and he had some adverse reactions like a few days after his second set of vaccines, and I just kept having these red flags, one after another. And, as a new mom, it's very difficult to take the time and invest the time you really needed to research these things.
Yeah.
But at some point it was too much for me to to continue to not research it. You know, it's like, I am worried that my son, the older and older he gets, the more these developmental delays are going to be noticeable and glaring in my face. And if I don't do something now while he's developing these things, you know, making all these connections in his brain, like it's going to be bad. So that's when I really dove in and started learning about vaccines and natural health and essential oils and supplements and nutrition and, you know, gosh, all the different diets out there. You know, it's overwhelming. Like, no paleo, no Weston A. Price, no vegan, no raw vegan, no, like it's
thing. Yeah,
it's so crazy and overwhelming to just be a person living in this world and trying to figure out what is the proper way to live and eat and all of that. So
well, yeah, we have similar journeys into this. We started vaccinating our children also, and it wasn't until my second born had a reaction that I started questioning them and looking into it myself. And that's unfortunately usually when most parents start looking into this. Hopefully, with the awareness that's being raised, we can stop it before it happens. So.
Right.
Yeah. So the health problems that your son had, I know autism usually is like a whole body disorder. So you have health problems as well as neurological delay. Yeah. So what health problems with him were you trying to eliminate when you got into wanting to detox him from these?
Sure. So some of the more earlier signs that we noticed with him was he just was not very emotional or I guess when he was really young, it was more of a social thing, you know. He just was, when my daughter was born, okay, he was completely uninterested, completely just indifferent to her presence, you know, in his life. That was one indicator that I was like, whoa, you know, all my friends have their second babies and they're just like, so, you know, like, oh my gosh, there's a new baby. Yeah. Whoa, like I want to learn about this. And like, you know, they were interested or at least they were aware, you know. And then when my son was about, it was between 18 months and 2 years where I was like, something is really not right. He, like I said, he didn't make a lot of good eye contact. He could not answer a yes or no question until he was over 2 years old, which was like, I mean, my daughter, when she was a year old or maybe even earlier, could answer a yes or no question. You know, it was very clear she could understand. Very clearly she knew, like, even just to go, you know, shake her head, yes or no. But my son was like, man, he just didn't understand. He had no idea how to like cognitively decipher what I was asking him. You know, I don't even know if he knew I was asking a question, you know? So there were definitely significant neurodevelopmental delays, language and speech delays. He couldn't put more than 2 syllables together until after he was 2 years old again. And that was when we stopped vaccinating. Yeah. So, and that was kind of when we started giving him more and more like fruit and veggie smoothies. And so, yeah, there was the neurodevelopmental cognitive delays, speech delays. He had very difficult time with the, like the gross motor like gross motor skills. Yeah. Not motor.
Like stacking the blocks.
Yeah, like getting his own clothes on. Yeah. You know, like he had really good, like he could write well, but he couldn't do like the big things. And he also had some sensory processing disorder happening. I mean, it was like getting something on his hands, he'd kind of freak out, you know, sounds and all kinds of things, you know, would just kind of set him over the edge, and just kind of this overreaction of like, whoa, okay, this doesn't seem normal, even for a kid that overreacts all the time.
Yeah.
So, because the interesting thing was that my sister had a son 3 months after I had my son. And so it was very interesting to see them both developing, and how at one point it was like, here's, my nephew, here's my son. And it was like,
yeah,
it was just, I'm glad that I was able to see their comparative, stages when it was happening, so that it would send more red flags so that I would look into these things. But man, it was hard for a while to see that. So yeah, those issues. Then he had really bad stomach pain, chronic. It ended up being all day long. He developed tics because he can get very easily magnesium deficient because of all the aluminum in the vaccines. I think, trying to think of what else there was, but it was mostly, the food allergies along with the digestive issues, stomach pain, bedwetting, tics, the neurodevelopmental cognitive delays, gross motor delays, the SPD. I think I've covered it.
Yeah.
Oh, eczema.
Oh, that's a
very dry skin and eczema too. So
almost every vaccine,
mm-hmm.
is eczema. Yeah. Thank you for sharing what your poor little one's gone through and what you're aiming to detox, which can be done with food and proper nutrition. So have faith, guys. After you started detoxing with him, doing the high fruits and veggies, well, can you explain a little bit how you were going about his diet, and then if he had any healing symptoms that he experienced? They call it healing crisis symptoms. I like to call it healing symptoms. It doesn't sound as scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can kind of be scary sometimes. Or just irritating. But anyway, yeah. So I was still kind of learning about different diets when we decided to cut out some major foods from my son's diet. This was back when he was about a little over 4 years old, maybe close to 4.5 years old. We had been suspecting gluten was an issue, and dairy, obviously, for a long time, because I'd been learning about that. And we would go through phases. He was a super picky eater too. He still kind of is, but thank God he loves fruit. Side note, right? But because that was like his saving grace, basically. Anyway, so we had been trying so hard to get him to not eat as much gluten. We would cut back for like 2 weeks and struggle with him and try to get him to eat other things. And then we would just get exhausted and be like, whatever, like just eat the muffin, eat, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, eat the bread, whatever. And then he would have all these symptoms again, and he'd be super emotional and super unreasonable. And like this kid that seemed reasonable was all of a sudden just like so all over the place and super reactive, right? And so that was our first clue that like, wow, we really need to focus on his diet. And then finally my husband was like, you know what, we need to just test him. Like, this is so rough for us right now. And so we actually went and did some research and found some tests that you can do online. Basically, they send you the testing materials, and then you send the samples back to them. And so we did a test for like H. pylori. We didn't know if he had a parasite or whatever. We tested for gluten, dairy, soy, and egg intolerance. And all of those came back as positive, right? And so we were like, wow, okay, well, pretty clear that we should at least cut these things out. And while we're at it, let's cut out processed sugar and just food additives in general, food dyes, all of these other things. And so that's what we did. And we were super strict about it. And obviously we did shift more naturally towards more fruit at that time. And we did try a bunch of different things. Like we were like, well, maybe we can try to make gluten-free bread, and it was like, oh, this is just not turning out very well. But thankfully there are a lot of good substitutes out there at stores these days, obviously. So we did some of those things, right? But it took about, I want to say a good 5 to 6 months before all of a sudden, like, he was kind of a new kid. And it was amazing. It was like this kid before had constant stomach pain. He was going to bed with stomach pain. Every time he ate, about 15 minutes later, he'd have stomach pain. He got to the point where he didn't want to like go outside and play because he was just wanting to curl up on the couch and relax because his stomach hurt him. He'd wake up in the middle of the night with stomach pain, wake up in the morning, Mama, my stomach hurts, right? So it was like, we've got to do something for this kid, like serious, And yeah, in 5 months, his stomach pain was completely gone.
Wow.
Completely gone, was not bothering him at all anymore. He was so emotionally connective. It was like he had never, like almost never told me he loved me until then, right?
Oh.
And he like never really wanted to hug me good night. Like, it's funny because he's in this phase right now where like it's funny because I was like this as a kid. I didn't really like want to be all affectionate, so I can see a little bit of that in him now that he's older and he's like, no, like I don't want to be affectionate, but I'm working on him because he's just got that attitude now, but back then, like when you're only like 4 years old, like
you usually want your parents.
Yes.
You usually want to snuggle and yeah.
Yes, right? And so he like never wanted hugs, never wanted to like tell anybody that they loved or he loved them. And then all of a sudden, like everyone that came over, every family member, the babysitter, he was like practically crying when they left because he was like, I love you. I don't want you to go,
Wow.
And it was like all of a sudden this like just these emotions blossomed, and it was like he was so considerate of people. And I mean, it was obviously along the way, he kind of like waxes and wanes, and I've noticed that like sometimes he'll wane and then I don't know how to explain that. Like we make advances and then we have a little bit of setbacks, and then we make more advances, and then we have a little bit of a setback, and we have more advances and we have a little bit of a setback, right? And so it hasn't been just like boom, like perfect, like the whole way, but you can see the results, and you can see just how much real food can make an impact, and just taking out all of this toxic food. I mean, it's toxic food.
Yeah.
Toxic, toxic. So yeah, how much that can make a difference. And I mean, I don't know, like I just remember taking this video of my son and him being so lovey on his sister, and like you would just see like the joy in his eyes, just like hugging her and giving her a little kiss on the cheek. And I'm like, this is not like,
it's a whole different kid, huh? Yes. Like a whole different child. So.
Yes. And so it was so wonderful. And I mean, there was definitely a lot of things that we did along the way. We used probiotics and some digestive enzymes here and there, right? Just to help. But mostly we just really focused on food because, and I'm thankful for this. My husband and I are really like, we don't want to use supplements with our kids,
Yes.
Supplements are like, I mean, they're supplements. They're not supposed to replace food.
Yes.
Yeah,
you get the nutrition right from the food. Why not?
Yes.
That.
Mm-hmm. And our bodies know what we need, so that when we eat these foods, they're going to get everything that it needs, whereas we don't really know what we need. We're just kind of guessing here and there. I mean, unless we're doing blood tests all the time, which was still not that helpful in some cases, right? Because it doesn't show the whole picture. But yeah, you get what I'm saying. Like when
Yeah.
he had tics and he became very magnesium deficient, we did not just start pumping him full of magnesium. We were like, okay, let's get some water that definitely has at least 10 milligrams per liter of magnesium in it. Let's make sure he's getting magnesium rich foods. Let's put some into his smoothies. Let's make sure he's doing more Epsom salt baths, things like that.
That's great.
And yeah, and like I said, my husband was adamant about like, we're not just going to give him supplements. That's not going to happen. And I was even more along the line of, oh, but I know that he needs this. And I'm like, okay, we'll work with the food, but I'm really thankful that he kind of put his foot down on those things, because I'm like, wow, we really just needed to eat right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And most of the supplements too, I shouldn't say all, most are synthetic
Right.
representations of the actual vitamin that you just get from the plant. So
right. And you cannot recreate
nature.
all of you can't recreate that. The nature, like, I mean, everything that grows that is food for us on this earth, I mean, it's made for our bodies. All of the different enzymes and vitamins and minerals and everything in there, I mean, they all kind of come together. You can't just isolate something and then call it good,
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of those vitamins need each other in that same compound to be utilized. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's super important. So when he had the magnesium deficiency, what kind of signs did you tell? I know you get cramping, like when you have magnesium deficiency.
There's actually, oh my gosh, magnesium is such a huge thing. So that was one supplement that I actually took for myself for a long time, just because, and I do take it here and there just because it is, I mean, pretty much everybody's magnesium deficient according to, most naturopaths and everything. Um, but yeah, magnesium is super important. I remember reading one study where it was like, if we could just get, this much more magnesium in everybody's water, then we would reduce the risk of heart attack and stroke by like, I don't know, like 10 million more people every year, It was something crazy like that. But for my son, he started developing tics. So we had tried to get a reverse osmosis filtration system for our drinking water. And that was before I realized, oh, you need magnesium in your water.
And it would take it out, huh?
Yeah. And so it just takes everything out. And it was interesting because the water tasted so sweet because
Yeah.
it was completely mineral deficient. But yeah, about 2 months after, my son was drinking so much water. And I had figured out after, all of this stress and anxiety over, oh my gosh, what's going on with our son? Because he started developing tics and they got worse. He started with blinks and then blinking fits. And then it was like his whole face. And then it was like his face and his shoulder. And I'm like,
Wow.
this is not okay. This progressed like that in the matter of a couple weeks. And I just remember one night, my husband and I at our computers, like, we have got to do whatever we can to try to figure out what is going on here. And we had already made an appointment with his pediatrician and talked to him about getting a referral to a neurologist and doing an EEG. And I was worried at the time he was having like these absence seizures and all kinds of things. But we found articles separately, a World Health Organization article on demineralized water saying that it can make you magnesium deficient. And then I found an article on magnesium deficiency and tics. And we were just like, okay, we're just gonna try this, because what else are we gonna do? Like, while we're waiting for this doctor's appointment, and we hardly ever go to the doctor these days, and thankfully I found a really awesome pediatrician, but that's besides the point. But we don't like to take chances, we're like, well, let's just get him in and do what we can do. But we changed his water. We stopped doing the demineralized reverse osmosis water. We bought some like really nice water that was like had a high pH and spring water that said clearly on the bottle it contained like a certain amount of magnesium and silica. And then we started adding magnesium-rich foods to his smoothies and all of that. And within a week, his tics were like 95% gone.
Wow.
And I mean, I can't tell you like how frustrating it was to finally get into the pediatric neurologist here, because it literally took, I think it was 3 or 4 months to get an appointment. Think about all the kids that are going to a neurologist when it's that booked up.
Right.
That's just sad. And so we took him in, and this was after his tics were already gone, but we were like, you know what? We're just going to keep this just in case, just to talk and
want
make
to figure out maybe why, and
yes.
cover all your bases.
Right, exactly. Just in case we missed something. I mean, we were pretty solid that, okay, this was the magnesium, right? But I remember sitting there at the neurologist appointment, and I asked the pediatric neurologist, I said, so, because he had said, well, tics are kind of just a part of normal childhood development. And I'm like,
well, then.
I don't know about that. Like, you mean normal today? Like,
yeah.
I mean, okay, maybe common. That's not normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I was like, so do you think that it's possible that like a vitamin or mineral deficiency could be contributing to tics? And he just flat out said no. I mean, it was like, he didn't skip a beat. It was just, oh no, yeah, no, it's just a part of normal childhood development. And I, at that point, was so like, it's just not even worth talking to this guy about this right now. Like, I just was like, my husband was sitting there, and I'm like, I don't want to get into it with this guy right now, because, you know, he's the expert, right?
Yeah. And there's no talking with at that point. You can't have an intellectual conversation, because when you flat out, like, I've decided that if I'm going to talk to anyone about health, they have to have this certain outlook on things. They're going to have to be like, if you mention something, oh, I don't know about that, let me look into it, because that's a healer. That's a healer. Or, you know, I don't know, let me see if there's any studies on it, and get back to you or something. No, there's no connection whatsoever.
I mean, he was like 100% sure, and I'm like, well, there's really no point then, you know. It was.
And when you've seen it yourself,
yeah,
a huge change in changing of the water and making sure that the magnesium is in it. Obviously, there's a connection there. So
yeah, and that's when it was a few months later. I think I was doing some research on aluminum in vaccines. I was just, some nights I like seriously sit on PubMed.gov, and I'm just like, let's see what I can find here, you know. And, so this one night, I don't know, like I just stumbled upon these studies that linked magnesium and aluminum.
Wow.
Right. And so I was like, oh, wow. I had always suspected in the back of my mind that the reason why my son had so many symptoms of magnesium deficiency, or had such severe symptoms of magnesium deficiency, while I did not, my daughter did not, unvaccinated, right? My husband did not, only my son. And my son was guzzling this water all summer. And I realized that the reason why is because his body was wanting magnesium. And so he was becoming more and more thirsty in order to like get more water and get more magnesium, but it was pulling magnesium out of his body, because the natural state of water is to have that magnesium in it.
Yeah.
And so it was like this horrible cycle that the more water he drank, the more magnesium deficient he became.
Yeah.
And
trying to get more.
And it made him thirstier. So it was very interesting. But yeah, I found that basically aluminum causes symptoms of magnesium deficiency. because it, you know, you need the proper balance of magnesium and calcium, the neurons, and aluminum gets in there and basically takes the place of magnesium and then destroys the neuron through that excitotoxicity, through the calcium, too much influx of calcium into the neurons, and it just kind of, yeah. But it was just amazing because I found several studies and I was like, wow. So, you know, he was pumped full of aluminum when he was about 4 months old, you know, and then at 5 months, and then at like a year, 18 months, he was given the Pediatrix vaccine when he was 4 months old. And that was the one he got against my wishes. And that's the one that has the most aluminum of any other combination shot in existence. So anyway, it was just very interesting to stumble upon that after the fact. And I'm like, wow, well, there you go, you know? So
I don't think there's any chance that you stumbled upon that. That's really great that you're able to make these connections, and
yeah.
I'm honored to share your information that you've discovered. Hoping that helps other people. It's amazing. Those were the healing symptoms he had. Are there any other that you?
Sorry, yeah, other healing symptoms. He's definitely, I think he definitely has some emotional detox that happens at times. He can get very, very, very sensitive, right? And very, very emotional. And I think at the same time, while I'm going through my own emotional detox, it's like kind of, it's a little more, I don't know what word to use. I don't know. It's a little more volatile. I don't know how to explain that.
It can be a lot.
When you're as a mom already, it's already stressful, you know, so it's
going through your personal detox and your son. Yeah. It's well, you know, and I'm sure you've heard of epigenetics, where everything's stored in the cells, and definitely all these emotions are stored generation after generation, and you have to detox. You know, they come out in detox, and you feel these emotions as they exit your body. So yeah, there's a lot of crying cells, and sometimes there's anger, depending on what's held in our cells. You know, there's a lot of anger that can come through, sadness, excitability. I don't know, you know, that's an emotion too. So yeah, it can be overwhelming for everyone, and for a little one. Yeah.
Oh, yes. So I definitely have a lot of compassion on him, just because it's like, he's such a good kid, and he just always has such good intentions. And so when he's struggling with something or upset, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just like, it's going to be okay. But yeah, he's had that happen. And then he has had a little bit of digestive stuff come back up. But the more and more we focus on fruit, it just goes away. So after we had cut out all of those things, you know, the gluten, dairy, soy, eggs, processed sugar, additives, all that, I want to say we gradually started cutting out all the rest of the animal products, except for he will still eat either sardines or some wild caught Alaskan salmon, mostly because his pediatrician was really big on the omegas. And I understand why omegas can be helpful, because they help reduce inflammation. And if you're detoxing, well, then that might be good, because you have a kid who's trying to detox, and I don't want to like push that too hard. I want to do like a more slow and steady version of detox for him, so that it's much safer than like, you know, a person jumping into like a juice cleanse or something, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to do that to my kid, right? So yeah, but we've cut out all animal products besides that, pretty much like all grains. He was doing like some lentil soup and stuff here and there. And gosh, what else? He loves, you know, sauteed veggies and like avocado oil and potatoes and all of that. But really his diet the past month has been probably like 90% fresh organic fruit.
That's great.
And there have been days where I'm like, he's just in such a good mood. He's so reasonable. He's so clear-headed. he's considerate, and I'm like, wow, is this the fruit? Because it's amazing. So yeah, and I mean, it's not probably going to be, we're probably not going to have him on that diet permanently, but if he just continues to get better and that's what he's happy with and good with, and he's developing properly, then like it definitely will be, keeping it to high fruit, because it's just so healing for him and for everyone. So
yeah, that was absolutely healing. I just noticed you have the Detox Miracle Source book.
Oh yeah.
If you guys don't have that book, it's like I was going to compare it to a big literature, but this book is amazing. Just if you guys don't have a copy of it, any health question that you have, you can look in there. And it talks about how fruit is so healing. And of course, Dr. Robert Morse wrote it. And fruit is healing. And I can, sometimes it can flare up our symptoms that we're working on. So I wouldn't be surprised, if his intestinal, symptoms flare up. But if he's doing great on fruit right now, how amazing is that to know he's at a certain stage in his wellness journey where he's not having adverse healing symptoms coming.
Yes, that is a good sign.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Thank you for saying that, because yeah, for me, from my own healing journey, right, I love to juice, so I'll juice a lot almost every day. And then I will try to eat fruit until like a certain time of day. And then I love salsa. I love salsa. So I get like
this too, salsa and guacamole.
Yes. And so I get these grain-free chips that are amazing, and they're practically healthy for you, but they're not fruit. You know what I mean? So I try, guys. But yeah, and so, but I don't notice any symptoms until like I start eating beans or I eat rice. It's like my I start filtering, and I'm doing well, and I'm healing. I can tell I'm detoxing, and I don't have any issues when I eat fruit. But then all of a sudden, like a half an hour after I eat something heavier like that, it's like my skin starts, like I can tell my skin's starting to break out, or I'm like, oh my gosh, or I get really congested in my sinuses.
And I almost instantly get, because we're all human on this detox journey, and if you're taking it slowly, I feel like you're more apt to like get into some things that maybe people who are extreme about it wouldn't. But yeah, I noticed like an instant headache.
Yes.
Or mucus.
Yep.
Like a phlegmy feeling, or boogers, snot. And gas too. Like if I have beans, like, or even sulfur cruciferous type thing. The gas and bloating, that can be pretty serious with all that sulfur in it. Yeah. It's funny. It's nice how it's really cool that you are going through it with your son. Like I that's pretty awesome. And then you get to know the ins and outs too of like detox, how your body kind of feels better with certain foods, and help him along his journey. Have you guys ever had a iridology reading for him?
So, gosh, I think it was like a couple years ago, I had posted like a picture on a group, right? And they had said that there's, definitely a lot of toxicity, and it just basically confirmed what I had thought was going on with him, or what like his symptoms were showing. I think I might try, I go back and forth, because I'm like, I would love to get an iridology reading for me and my son and my husband and my daughter, right? But at the same time, like, I know the answer is fruit.
Yeah.
So it's like, it would be super interesting to me to learn about it myself too, and do all of that. I think the biggest reason why it would be helpful would be to learn like what herbs to use for this, because we haven't really used herbs. I mean, I use dandelion for myself, and some milk thistle and artichoke and other things like that. And I actually have Dr. Morse's stomach tea, and I love it. It's so good. And my son actually really loves it. I just kind of forget I get out of the habit of giving it to him.
Yeah.
And so I just need to like make sure I'm more diligent about that. But yeah, I mean, I find iridology just completely fascinating. I I end up telling other people about it that I don't even know.
It is
People's
so
eye color can change.
yeah.
Like, oh, it's really interesting.
It's very interesting, and it's a super great tool for parents to use when they can just kind of see what's going on, confirm their suspicions, because sometimes not all of us get great pediatricians
Oh
and
yeah.
or answers from the allopathic practice at all. So you can kind of see where the weaknesses are, and fruit's going to heal it anyways. So if you don't have access to it, it's not a big deal. But yes, it's a great tool.
Yeah, I did want to say, well, you mentioned about going to like a naturopath and not really getting answers. This is kind of a side note, not really having to do with my son's journey, but for my own journey. I mean, there was a year where I went to like 5 different naturopaths
My goodness.
trying to, and I mean, I don't even want to know how many thousands of dollars that I spent on supplements and appointments and treatments and things like that. Um, like trying to kill parasites that I may or may not have had, trying to, I mean, all kinds of things, right? Trying to fix my gallbladder. I don't even know if I really had issues with my gallbladder or not. I mean, I probably did, but
Right. Well,
but
that's where iridology can come into play too. Like, I don't know, it's like a hand in hand, like, okay, so yes, I do have a gallbladder weakness. I can see it in my iridology. Let's go ahead and do these if it's necessary, do those herbs for it.
for sure. I really did not get any answers going to naturopaths. And so while I am thankful that people have that option to go to a naturopath, it just was like kind of pointless for me. And I felt like the dietary changes that I made were way more impactful than anything that I did to go to a naturopath or anything that I took like as a supplement. Because they recommended it, So, and I did like everything they wanted me to do. And on top of trying to have like a relatively healthy diet at the time. I mean, technically now I look back and it wasn't really that healthy, but.
And some of the naturopaths can still be high protein kind of
Yes.
foods, and as we know, that doesn't help the problem at all. And a lot of times I think the problem is the naturopathic degrees are earned by schools that are accredited, like are approved, I guess you would call it, through the government. So there you hit kind of a roadblock, because the education that's approved is still a symptom treatment kind of view on the medical still. It's not getting to the root cause of the problem. It's just going through and giving supplements for different symptoms, which is kind of the same thing as the allopathic practice, unfortunately. So, not all of them. I don't want to say that. I don't want to group everyone into it, because there's some great naturopathic healers out there, but unfortunately it's headed down the road where it's just a treatment-based system.
Right.
Yeah. So were there any changes in family and social situations since these lifestyle changes?
I mean, definitely it's been tough for my dad because one of his love languages is cooking for people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's an awesome cook, but he makes a lot of meat. I mean, my favorite just dinner growing up was meatballs and mashed potatoes and gravy and corn. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it's
yeah.
good.
It was amazingly good, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and so he used to love to have everybody over, like my grandparents, my sister and her family, our family, and just cook these huge meals, like, and pies and tri-tip and, potato salad and just everything, right? And so, gosh, like I was the first one in the family to start being like, I'm going to have to bring some of my own food and don't worry about like feeding me, dad. And it was so hard, because I don't want him to feel unappreciated. I didn't want him to feel like, I'm not going to eat your food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably the hardest part about this lifestyle change with eating healthy is because of the people in your life that you love and want to connect with over food.
Yeah. It's such a social thing.
Yeah. So anyway, and then, when we started changing my son's diet and then my daughter, obviously ate the same way just because we're a family, and my husband, would kind of eat whatever, but for the most part, he would eat what we'd eat. But when we go to my parents' house, he'll eat a little bit of their food too. He's not as strict as I am, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the more information that I gave my mom, she started cutting animal products out of her diet, and she's a dietitian.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah. And so her and I butted heads like crazy for a long time because she went to college and learned the food pyramid, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so my mom cut out animal products. My grandmother cut out animal products. My brother-in-law decided to become practically vegan, pescatarian, right? Except for some salmon here and there, which is like a total shock because, I mean, he never even ate veggies. Like, it was like milk was like one of his main foods, right? Milk. And then meat, potatoes, French fries, like,
Yeah.
I mean, so it was amazing the change that happened with him. Like he gets juice from this local juice bar like almost daily now, and it's amazing. So, and then, this happened where my grandfather, sorry, I'm like going on this super big tangent.
That's okay.
It's okay.
I mean, it sounds like you had like a kind of a poor experience with your dad, but it sounds like the majority of it is like, wow, that's a great experience where you have everyone joining in with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that because I would share like scientific studies with my mom, and my mom does value the science, she was like, okay, and so she started cutting things out, and doing smoothies, and she had high blood pressure, so she cut out all coffee and everything. And then my grandmother cut out everything too, same time as my mom. And thankfully, because she'll listen to my mom, right? Then my grandfather he wouldn't change his diet. I remember my dad and him would always say like, eat right, or no, wait, what was it? That saying where they're like, eat right, stay fit, die anyway. Like,
you only live once, kind of
I
thing.
know, right? Let's and I'm like, okay, you're totally missing the whole aspect of chronic illness that is like very unpleasant.
Yeah.
So, but my grandfather, oh my gosh, thankfully things are finally changing for him, but he, started taking medicine for his heart disease and high blood pressure. And then he developed diabetes because of all of that and the way he ate. And then he started getting chronic kidney disease because he had his kidneys tested, right? And it was like, all his numbers were like, oh, this is not good. This is like the end of the line here. And I mean, he has changed his diet just based on what my mom, because she's a dietitian. So she's like, okay, you need to like barely any meat and more veggies and like some of these fruits and all of that, He's lost like 30 to 40 pounds in like 2 to 3 months.
Wow.
And looks amazing. I swear he had to get a new like wardrobe because you know what I mean? And yeah, then he got his kidney levels tested again and they were normal.
Wow.
So, like,
that's great. That's good.
I mean, he didn't even go all fruit or anything, but he just cleaned up all this junk, like the big part of the junk out of his diet, and it's made such an amazing difference, right?
Wow.
So, I mean, and the same thing with my brother-in-law when he went like kind of vegan, more high fruit. I mean, he lost like probably 20 to 30 pounds.
Yeah.
So anyway, like it's just
He lose a
been,
lot of weight.
yeah, it's been amazing. It's been amazing to see all these changes over the years. And my dad is eating a lot less meat just because he doesn't make it anymore as much because my mom won't eat it.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but I'm like happy. I'm sad for him because I know he loves his meat. Because he's like a hunter and everything. I mean, it's like, so, and he grew up doing that. So it's like, I don't know. But anyway, but I'm just glad that these changes are helping my family members. But now, yeah, my family has become like let's make food for everybody and come over to our house because more people are eating the way we're eating now rather than the way we used to eat, which is crazy, like fried food, meat, and
all
so
that. Yeah.
it's such a dramatic change.
That's it. That's a huge change. I hope I can see one of those. I have a lot of family that's been asking me about what I'm doing and all that. So hopefully it'll be like that where we invite people over and make food.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So are there any tips you would give anyone debating on starting this detox journey or just beginning on it? It sounded like you were pointing out to your family, like a lot of the scientific research on it. Would you recommend looking into stuff like that or any other tips?
Well, I would say if you don't believe this is the way to go yet, I mean, I would definitely just, gosh, I mean, I know there's so much information out there that's conflicting, but when you really look into why fruit is the way to go versus high animal protein, you've got animal protein and everything that comes with that, which is like natural animal hormones. Even if you get organic raised meat, you're getting their hormones. You're getting like steroids in their bodies. You're getting, all those biologically active compounds in that animal flesh. And it might make you feel better in the short term because it supplies your body with all of these biologically active compounds that your body now doesn't have to make on its own, right? But that just causes your body to stop making its own biological compounds, and you need more and more of that. But then there's also toxicity in that meat, and there's also negative things like growth factors and things in that meat that you don't want to be getting in your body like at the same time. So if you were to focus on the fruit, it would help your body truly detox, pull things out. Yes, you're going to have to go through negative symptoms, but it helps your body function properly and make the things that it requires on its own. And then, I mean, it's amazing. Go to some raw vegan YouTubers and just look at how vibrant they are.
Yeah.
I mean, it is
like glowing.
like Tanny Raw and Fully Raw Christina. And I remember there's this one news story on this 70-year-old woman who's been raw vegan for like probably 2 decades, and she looked like she was like 35.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want her skin because her skin looks younger than my skin. I mean, amazing. Okay, just flat out amazing. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of science behind it, but there's also a lot of common sense. And at the same time, I truly believe humans were meant to eat fruit as like the big majority of their diet based on like our digestive tract, our teeth, our hands, our, so many things. Like the fact that, I mean, there's more and more I can go into, but as far as heading on that journey, if you do have a really heavy meat diet, low and slow, you know what I mean? I think what saved my family from experiencing like some of those healing symptoms or crises that you were mentioning was because we went so slow with it.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're having like serious symptoms, then you have to listen to your body. As always, always listen to your body, but know that symptoms are going to get inflamed when you start to detox. So don't just think, oh, my body doesn't like fruit.
Yes.
That's what a lot of people do is they're like, well, I tried to jump overnight into a raw vegan diet and my body just does not like that, and it's like, well,
like the Ashton Kutcher. Have you heard about that? He was playing Steve Jobs in a film, and as an actor, went fully into his lifestyle. He was a fruitarian, and he threw himself into pancreatic problems overnight because he went right into fruit. So then, all the stories are, oh, fruit is bad and all this stuff. But, he had a weak pancreas. So, and when you dive into it, just like that from standard American diet, it can't be good. I am all for a slow transition. And I really appreciate you pointing out the fact that, if you experience a symptom from a high fruit diet, it's not the fruit being bad for you. It's getting the stagnant lymph out. And balancing it is easy. You can balance it with vegetables will slow detox down. Cooked vegetables will stop it. And going into it slowly, cutting foods out. And that's how I went into it, just naturally when I, just kind of like how you explained with your son, you started getting out gluten. You always think okay, so gluten. Okay, let me cut out dairy because that must be the, problem we're having. And you start cutting out those things and it's natural transition to finding health. So I hope you guys are on your way to finding health for you and your children, your family. It's a great journey, and it sounds like you have had an amazing journey, and I thank you so much for sharing it. Are there any bonus, maybe favorite recipes that you guys have as a family?
Okay, so yes, my husband has come up with lots of good recipes, which I'm really thankful for. But some simple things we do for kids are we'll do fruit art. Okay. And this, my daughter, I have to work on her because she loves salt. She loves salt. And so I'm like, come on, you got to eat more fruit. But so it will help her to eat more fruit if we do even for dinner, some nights we'll do fruit art. So we'll, get a bunch of berries, grapes, apple slices, banana slices, all kinds of things. We'll put them into a bowl and we'll give them little toothpicks or whatever. And they'll start making things with their fruit. And they will eat it. They will eat a ton of fruit just because they get to play with it, So
that is a great tip.
Yeah, no, I'm not even joking. They love it. They have so much fun. Sometimes my husband, sometimes I'll go out with friends and then he'll do this with them and then he'll take them outside. And so they just play outside with their fruit and make little things. The last time my son made a porcupine, with his half sliced apple and grapes and the toothpicks and everything. It's just awesome. So
that's amazing. I love that. That's incorporating, just artistic, which we of course can get into. That's a huge side topic, but I think that's really important for kids to explore that side. And what better way to do it with something that's better, the best nutrition that you can get. That's such a great idea.
So the other thing that we do is my husband came up with, he has looked at various recipes, but he will make fruit-filled crepes, but the crepes themselves are made with, and this isn't for detox, but this is just for eating healthier,
With kids,
yeah. So the crepes are made with, we make homemade cashew milk with raw cashews, and soaking them and blending them with a couple of dates, a little bit of salt. And so we'll use that raw cashew milk. And then we will blend it up with some like organic gluten-free oats, some quick oats.
Yeah.
And somehow that is able to, we can pour that on a pan and then it will make a crepe roll. We just put a bunch of mashed bananas, mashed raspberries, or cut up strawberries, roll that up, right? And we will make this thing, my husband likes to call it ice cream sauce because it's so good. All it is coconut milk with some pure organic maple syrup, some vanilla extract, and I think just a touch of salt. And he'll pour that over it, then put some mashed blackberries on top with some cinnamon. And I mean, it's this amazing dessert.
That sounds so
Amazing.
easy,
Yeah.
but that sounds really decadent.
Yes, it's so good. And I mean, it's like I said, it's not like a detox meal or anything, but it's just one of those things that has helped us so much along the way to like shifting our diet away from all the junk, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a great recipe. You can consider it like a transitional detox
Mhm.
recipe, but I love recipes like that especially with my own kids. Just trying to get them away from the usual grains, the usual sweets,
Mhm.
and that's a good recipe. We're gonna have to try that.
Yeah. And we haven't noticed any negative experiences or negative symptoms with the oats, thankfully. So it's just, yeah, it's just fruit
Gluten-free.
is better for
Yeah.
detox.
Yeah, and the oats, even if they're not gluten-free, that the oats are, better if they're gluten-free, but I do that with my kids too. It's just one of those things where, it's hard to cut out so much of the stuff that they're so used to, especially if you haven't started them off as in fruitarian. Like we have trouble,
Mhm.
they used to have cereal all the time. And
Right.
now I've tried to get it to just rice kind of cereals, like Rice Krispies,
Uh-huh.
no sugar, and then do the
Yeah.
coconut milk and yeah. So it's just, and sweeten it with maple syrup, a little bit of drizzle. And it's
Yeah.
just one of those things you just have to find creative ways to get your kids interested in this, substitute things
Mhm.
out that aren't good for them. And
Yeah.
you're in a better, you're doing them good as compared to getting that gross stuff in them before,
Sure.
giving them health problems and preventing you from detoxing for sure.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing those recipes with us.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Ashley, I want to thank you so much for your interview with us. We'll wrap it up here. If you guys have any questions, please comment down below. Share this video. I can't tell you how many people I know being affected by autism and the signs and symptoms of autism, whether or not they're from vaccines. It's just a great thing to know that there's options to help your children and improve their quality of life. So thank you so much for being here, Ashley, and sharing with us your story.
Sure. Like I love talking about this stuff and I had a great time talking with you about it.
This is great. Yeah, definitely. Alrighty, I'll sign off. Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.